Okay, it's 12 o'clock, so we're going to get going. Thank you all today. We are thrilled to be here with Melissa Marks, who is community organizer at the League of Women Voters of New Jersey. And we are presenting the community conversation today, what you need to know, voter registration and early voting in New Jersey. Melissa's got all kinds of great information that you need to know to make sure that you and your clients are able to gain access to the vote this year in several different ways that are available. So before we get started, just a couple of reminders that everybody participating today did sign a code of conduct regarding online behavior and conducting yourself professionally in comments and both written and during the conversation. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Melissa and take it away.
Great, thank you so much, Jeff, and thank you everyone for having me. I'm excited to be here today and talk to you about voting in New Jersey. So a little bit about the League to get started. You know, we are a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization. So we've been around since 1920, and we work to make sure that people have information and access to the ballot. We do a lot of voter registration drives and things like this to remove barriers to the ballot and make sure folks are able to vote. So what I'll be going over today is voting access in New Jersey, registering to vote, voting by mail, voting early in person, voting in person on election day. I'll mention poll workers, and then I'll end with some voting resources, some dates and some deadlines. So, you know, there are a few changes in the election, you know, and how to vote and everything this year. So I want to make sure that everybody knows all of their options and they're prepared to pick one and they get everything done in time as well. So I just wanted to mention voter suppression. What is voter suppression? So voter suppression is any effort, either legal or illegal, that prevents eligible voters from registering to vote or voting. Voter suppression laws and tactics tend to have a disproportionate impact on marginalized groups as well. I wanted to just mention voter suppression because we're seeing across the country right now many attacks on voting access. And a few examples of those are, you know, voter ID laws. So anything, all of these are just ways to suppress the vote, right? Ways to remove access, to create additional barriers for eligible people to be able to cast their votes. So cutting voting hours and early voting, that's a form of voter suppression. You know, polling place consolidation and closures, that's another form. Voter roll purges, restricting mail and ballot requirements, gerrymandering, voter intimidation, felony disenfranchisement, accessibility issues for voters with disabilities, and language access issues. These are all ways that, you know, you can see the access to somebody's right to vote.
Melissa, hang on. We seem to have lost your audio. Can you hear me? Or are you frozen? Melissa, can you hear me? Sorry, bear with us for a moment. Looks like Melissa is having some technical troubles.
It happens to us all.
Right, it's the bane of technology. I wonder if she knows that we lost her. Oh, now it looks like it's disconnected completely. All right, let's give her a second to hopefully reconnect. sorry if you just want to bear with us. We're having some technical difficulties with our presenter. Hopefully she will be back online in a moment. There she is.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry about that.
Hi, Melissa.
My Zoom crashed.
Oh, these things happen. It's quite all right. Let me make you co-host again. It's always the fun of technology.
I know, you can't pick a better time, right? All right, let me get my slides back up. Appreciate everybody bearing with me here. All right, so I believe I was talking about voter access. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of attacks around the country, unfortunately, but thankfully in New Jersey, we have done a lot to improve access to the ballot. And the most recent one is in-person early voting, and I'll talk more about that later. But we also, made sure that everybody had a vote by mail ballot during COVID-19. Rights restoration is a great one as well. So we restored the ability for folks to register and cast ballots if they're on probation or parole. So these are just some examples of how New Jersey is moving in the right direction and is increasing the access to the ballot. I want to remind everyone that your vote does matter, right? We each have the power to increase turnout, and it's up to you to not just get yourself to the polls, but to help others, friends and families go vote as well. Right now, this election coming up in November, we have local New Jersey offices, right? So we have the state assembly, the state senate, the governor, and some local races as well, but there are no federal races. And what happens in New Jersey is that often these odd year, off year elections are a lot lower turnout than they are when we have a federal office holders on the ballot. But it's still a very important election, right? Your voice is heard when you vote. You have the ability to affect who represents you when you vote. And it's not just about the federal office holders. It's about local New Jersey elections as well. So definitely remember that your vote does matter in every single election and every single year. And do what you can to help encourage others to get out the vote as well. I will be mentioning a few different resources. Everything that I'll go over here, you can find the information to at Vote 411. So vote411.org has everything you need to know. Our website as well, NASW-NJ.org/vote. And I'll be talking a lot about New Jersey, the New Jersey Division of Elections website, which is vote.nj.gov. It has a really helpful voter information portal. Vote.nj.gov will take you right to that portal, and that has the options for you to print a mail ballot, to figure out your polling location, to register to vote. So all three of those resources I'll be mentioning throughout the day, and any one of them will get you the information that you need. So we'll start with talking about how to register to vote. So, the most important thing here is to know when the deadline is. The deadline for this upcoming general election is October 12th. So make sure that if you have not already registered, that you do so before October 12th, and don't wait for October 12th or October 11th. Do so ahead of time. Do it now while you're thinking about it, right? So you can register if you are a US citizen. You must be at least 17 years old. And that's with the understanding that you can't actually vote until you're 18, right? You can register when you're 17, but you can't cast your ballot until you're 18. You have to be a resident of your New Jersey county for at least 30 days prior to the election. And you may not be currently serving a sentence of incarceration for a felony conviction, but again, you can now register and vote if you're on probation or parole. So definitely make sure that you register before October 12th. And the same goes for updating your registration information. So I'll go over that now. Not all of us, the first thing that we think of when we move, for example, is not to update our voter registration information, but you will want to do so before you vote, right? So some reasons that you might need to re-register or update your voter information are if you change your name, if you change your address, and again, if you've completed your sentence of incarceration. So these are all reasons that you might need to re-register or update your voter registration information. And that same October 12th deadline applies for doing so. So there are a number of ways that you can register to vote. You can go to the New Jersey website, vote.nj.gov, and you can download an application still. You can print it out, you can mail it in. But you can also register online now. So it makes it super easy, super efficient. You can do so in 5 minutes. You can register to vote at vote411.org. You can also, again, find everything else on this website, including upcoming debates and forums in your area, who is on your ballot. So definitely check out Vote 411. If you prefer to go directly to New Jersey's state website to register to vote online, you can do so easily. Again, it's vote.nj.gov. And this is what the page will look like when you go to register to vote. So you will need some identification, a current driver's license or a non-driver identification issued by New Jersey. Or you can use your social security number if you prefer. All you have to do is hit get started, put the information in, and you'll be registered to vote in 5 minutes. And that's also how you'll update your information, right? So it's the same process where you need to change your name, you need to update your address. And so you might not know, oh man, I've moved twice recently. I know I updated my information after the first time, but did I update it after the second time? I can't remember. So if you want to figure out, do I need to update any of my voter registration information, you can check your voter registration status on that same website, vote.nj.gov. You'll go to the Am I Registered tool or the voter search tool. You just enter your information and then it will be able to tell you where you're registered, how you're registered. A couple of things you can find with this tool that are important and that I'll mention later on. Your voter ID. So later on when we get to voting by mail, if you want to track your vote by mail ballot, you'll need your voter ID. So this is one way to find your voter ID. And also if you want to figure out, am I signed up to vote by mail? I don't remember. Using this voter search will tell you. So I definitely recommend to put your info in on this voter search tool just to make sure that you have everything that you need. So now I'll get into casting a ballot. As we were talking about before, there are a lot of options this year to cast your ballot, which is great, but you will have to pick one, you have to make a plan, and you have to do so ahead of time. So there's kind of 5 ways to cast your ballot, and I'll go through each of them. In-person voting on election day is an option again. In-person voting during the early voting period, which is October 23rd to October 31st, is a new option this year. And then you can also vote by mail. So you will have to apply to vote by mail. And once you do, fill out your vote by mail ballot, you can either mail it back, you can deliver it to a secure drop box, or you can drop it off in person to your county board of elections. So we'll talk first about voting by mail, since I know that this is a little bit confusing sometimes. If you all remember, New Jersey mailed out vote by mail ballots to all the registered voters for the last election during COVID. That is not going to be the case this year. You can still vote by mail. Any registered voter can vote by mail, but you must apply in order to receive your vote by mail ballot. Now, some people will have applied already, and if you applied to vote by mail before and you selected the option to receive a mail ballot in every election, you do not need to apply again. If you're not sure, use that voter search tool and it will tell you if you are signed up to vote by mail in every election or not. So if you decide that you do want to vote by mail, but you have not applied, you do need to be aware of some deadlines. So the first deadline is October 26th. This is the deadline that if you want to apply to vote by mail through the mail, and you want to receive your ballot through the mail, you must apply by October 26th. And this is really, don't wait until October 26th to fill out your application and mail it in. That's not going to work. The application has to be received by your county clerk by October 26th. So with all of this, don't wait until the last minute, right? Decide in the next week how you want to cast your ballot and make sure that you have your application moving right now. So I'll go over, how to access that application in a moment. But if, say, you missed this October 26th deadline and you still would really like to vote by mail, no problem. You have one more opportunity to apply. You can apply in person at your county clerk's office up until 3 p.m. on November 1st. So that's the day before the election. You have until 3 p.m. to apply for a vote by mail ballot in person at your county clerk. You can find your county clerk locations and your county election office. You can find all of that at that same vote.nj.gov voter information portal. There's a section for all of your county and election offices. So if you would like to apply to vote by mail and you would like to get an application, it is a paper application, so you can't apply online. But you can get these applications at vote.nj.gov, at lwvnj.org/vote, or at vote411.org. This is what it looks like on the New Jersey's Division of Election website. You'll go to the vote by mail section, and then you'll have the opportunity to pull up the application for your county. There's a few different language options for the counties as well. So figure out what county you live in, pull up that application, and then just follow the instructions from there. You'll have to print it out and fill it out, and then you'll mail it back to your county clerk. The address for the county clerk and all the information will be right there on the application as well. So once you have applied to vote by mail, you will receive your mail ballot. And from there, you have 3 options for how to return and cast that ballot. You can return it by mail, you can return it to a secure drop box, or you can return it in person. The things to know about returning it by mail. So if you do decide that you want to mail back your ballot, again, don't wait until the last second. It must be postmarked by November 2nd and received by November 8th. So try to get that, vote by mail ballot filled out as soon as you receive it, and then put it in the envelope and mail it back right away. When you do receive your mail ballot, just be very careful, read through all the instructions and look at everything that comes in the envelope with you. You'll need to put the ballot inside an envelope, you'll need to sign it. So really be careful, take your time filling it out, and don't leave anything, on the table or in the recycling bin. If you prefer to, skip the mailing it back part and bring it to a drop box, you might remember these drop boxes from last year, and you can do so again. So ballots may be returned via Dropbox, but you have to have it in there by 8 p.m. on election day, which is November 2nd. And then these drop boxes are open, 24 hours. So you don't have to wait until November 2nd to bring it to a drop box. And I'll show you how to find those drop box locations in a second. And then lastly, you can bring your filled out vote by mail ballot in person to your county Board of Elections office by 8 p.m. on, again, election day, November 2nd. 8 p.m. is the close of polls, so that's why that's the deadline for both of these. If you would like to bring your filled out vote by mail ballot to a Dropbox location, you'll want to figure out where those are first. So again, any of those resources that I mentioned will bring you here, and just click the county that you're in, see what Dropbox locations are in your area, pick one, and then you can bring it there, before November 2nd at 8 p.m. How to track the progress of your ballot. So I mentioned this before, but one thing that you can do if you do decide to vote by mail is you can track your ballot. It's a very handy way to make sure, that everything was received. And in order to do that, you will have to log into your voter record. So this is again on vote.nj.gov. If you don't already have a voter record, you can easily set one up on the Track My Ballot page of the website. You will need your voter ID. So I mentioned before that you can get your voter ID if you use the search tool, the voter registration search tool. It will tell you what your voter ID is, and then you can use that to set up your voter record. There's also information on what the status descriptions mean. So you can click that to read more. And you can always contact your county elections officials. So with anything, if you have any specific question, specific problem, reach out to them. They're there to help you. They can get you your voter ID. They can walk you through any of these steps here. I wanted to highlight a few of the most common reasons that a ballot might be rejected. So you might have, missed the November 2nd deadline, and they didn't arrive until after November 8th. So definitely just make sure that you don't wait until the last minute. You don't take any chances. Bring your ballot either through the mail to a drop-box location or in person to your Board of Election office ahead of time, so you don't have to worry about the ballot being received late. The certificate may be missing. Again, look very carefully at everything that they send you. Take everything out, look at all of it, look at the directions, and don't leave anything on the table or in the recycling bin. Your signature, I'll talk about the signature a bit more in a minute, but your signature could be mismatched or missing. You might just forget to sign it. Don't forget to sign it. And you could also just forget your ballot on the kitchen table and close up the envelope. So these are the most common reasons that a ballot will get rejected, and they're all fixable, they're all avoidable. So take your time, be careful, have somebody double check your work if you want to. To talk about signatures a little bit more, the signature that the state has on record is the signature that you used when you first registered to vote. So for many of us, that was when we were 18, right? I don't have the same signature that I did when I was 18 anymore. So you really want to keep that in mind when you're filling these out. If for some reason, the state does decide that your signature didn't match up, keep an eye on your mail. They will contact you. Then you'll have the ability to what's called ballot cure. So you have the ability to certify that, this is your signature, this is you, this is your ballot, and then they will count that ballot and cast it for you. So keep an eye on your mail and make sure that if you do receive a ballot cure notification, that you open it up, you read it, and you respond as quickly as possible. What is a bearer? So a person who transports a cast or completed vote by mail ballot for somebody else is considered a bearer. So bearers are limited to 3 non-household ballots per election, except that an authorized bearer may transport up to 5 ballots in an election if those voters are immediate family members residing in the same household as the bearer. So you can't exceed 5 ballots in total for any election, and the bearer must sign the bearer portion of the outer envelope of the ballot in the presence of the voter when taking custody of the ballot. So again, look very carefully at everything that you have, read the instructions, look at the outside of the envelope, and if you are a bearer, you will have to sign it. Any bearer ballots that exceed that 5 limit, they will be rejected. So make sure that you understand these rules. And if the bearer is hand delivering the ballot to the County Board of Elections, they must show ID and sign the bearer book. It is against the law for anyone except for you, the voter, to mail or transport your ballot unless the outer envelope is sealed and the bearer portion is completed. And then there is a good amount of information on New Jersey Department of Elections website about voting rights and accessibility. So if you want to check that out and learn more, you can go to the votenj.gov portal, and then you'll hit the voting rights and accessibility option. So that's voting by mail. I know that there's a lot of components to it, so feel free to ask questions about it later. I'll get into in-person early voting. So early voting is new this year. We're very excited about it. The point here is that, just because you work on November 2nd or you can't get yourself to the poll on November 2nd, that shouldn't mean that you can't cast your ballot, right? So early voting has an additional period of time that you're able to vote in person and cast your ballot on a machine. The early voting period this year is October 23rd to October 31st. Keep in mind that the polling locations will be slightly different, open for slightly different hours during this period. They will be open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays and Saturdays, and from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays. So voting early in person, it's the same thing as voting on election day. It's just during a different period of time so that voters have the ability to cast their ballots. The polling locations that will be open for early voting are limited, and it goes by county. So if you want to vote during this early voting period in person, just make sure that you look up ahead of time so you know which polling locations will actually be open. And again, you can do so at the vote.nj.gov website or our website or Vote 411. All of those will bring you to this, which is, all of the locations that each county will have open. And you can vote at any one of them. So you don't have to vote at the closest one, but you probably will want to. So you won't have a designated polling location the way that you will for voting on election day. So definitely, go here, take a look at all of the polling locations that will be open during the early voting period and make a plan ahead of time. Hey, I might live near this polling location, but I work near this polling location. And so I can easily go there at 6 o'clock after I get off of my shift. That's what I'm going to do on, October 27th. So think ahead of time, plan ahead of time, figure out where and when is most convenient to you. And that's how you're most likely to actually cast your ballot. And then, of course, voting in person on election day is back. So the polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And for voting in person on election day, you will have a dedicated polling location. So you can find that, New Jersey has a great polling place search tool. And again, it's vote.nj.gov or any of the other websites that I've mentioned. Polling search tool, you just plug in your address and it will tell you what the designated polling location is for you. 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on November 2nd. I wanted to talk about poll workers. So New Jersey does need poll workers. Poll workers are really important. They are the reason that we don't have long lines or the reason that your voting experience went smoothly. Somebody answered your questions, helped you vote by provisional ballot, whatever it is. Poll workers are how elections run smoothly. They're really, really important. And right now, we not only need poll workers on election day, we need poll workers during early voting as well. So it's really important and counties are looking for people. So, there's some additional benefits. It's not just that you're doing good and serving your community, you're also getting paid. So you will get $14.29 per hour for in-person early voting days and $200 on election day. And there is an additional $30 when you attend the required training. So you won't just be thrown in, you'll be trained. People will make sure that you know what you're doing. So definitely consider applying to be a poll worker, thinking about what day you might be available. So who can apply? You must be a United States citizen and a resident of New Jersey. You must be at least 16 years of age. And that means that college and high school students are able to become poll workers. So they're definitely encouraged to apply. You must not be running as a candidate in the election if you would like to be a poll worker. And again, you can become a poll worker during the early voting period, October 23rd to 31st, as well as election day. I do believe that many of the counties are especially looking for election day poll workers right now, but of course they'll take anything that you can do is still super helpful. So yeah, Vote 411 again is a great website. It's very well laid out. It's very easy to navigate, and it's not just helping you to register to vote or getting you the mail ballot application. It also helps you to see the ballot questions, for example, and the candidates that are in your race. So it's localized, and I definitely encourage everybody to check out Vote 411. As you're navigating casting your ballot this year on election day, as you're going to your polling location, if you ever have any questions or any problems, you see anything, there are two hotlines that we definitely encourage everybody to reach out to. We have our own hotline. It's 1-800-792-VOTE or 8683. And the New Jersey Division of Elections has their hotline as well, which is 1-877-NJ-VOTER or 1-877-658-6837. So these are really good resources. No question is too basic, no problem is unaccepted. Definitely reach out anytime you have any questions or you need help navigating anything. And I wanted to end with all of the important dates and deadlines, because I know there are a lot. So starting with voter registration, the deadline is October 12th. And that includes updating your information, not just registering to vote. If you're applying by mail, then the application has to be postmarked by October 12th, but you can easily apply online as well. In-person early voting is new this year, very exciting. It starts on October 23rd and the last day is October 31st. Keep in mind the polling locations will be open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays and Saturdays during this early voting period, and from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays. The vote by mail application deadline, if you're going to apply by mail, is October 26th, but that is the date that the application must be received by your county clerk. So we definitely recommend filling out that vote by mail application and sending it in ahead of October 26th. If you would like to apply for a vote by mail application in person, you have until November 1st at 3 p.m. at your county clerk's office. And of course, election day is November 2nd. So the polls will be open if you want to vote in person on election day from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then to remind everyone, if you are voting by mail, the November 2nd, again, is the deadline to vote, and that is included in vote by mail. 8 p.m. is the close of polls, so 8 p.m. is when you will need to have your vote by mail ballot into a secure Dropbox location or brought to your county Board of Elections office. And if you're mailing it back, then it must be postmarked by November 2nd and received through the mail by November 8th. And as always, reach out anytime if you have any questions, if you'd like to partner with us. Our website has a lot of all of this information, and I think it's pretty well laid out. So definitely check out lwnj.org/vote. It will bring you directly to all of these resources that I've shown you today. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at LWVNJ. We post, reminders about all of this, information about all of this, so definitely check that out. And then you can always email me directly if you have any questions or you need any help with anything. I'm the community organizer at the League, and my email is mmarks@lwvnj.org. And that's all I have for today. Would you like me to continue the screen share or stop?
You can stop the screen share.
All right.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for that detailed presentation and all that information. It's so important to make sure that this information is out there, and especially with the different ways to vote and registering and voting early and vote by mail, it can get really confusing for folks. So I'm glad that we were able to spell all this out. I also have a number of really good questions that have been submitted to me. So give me a second while I go through this list here. So one question I have is about mail-in ballots. If you request a mail-in ballot, can you still decide to go and vote in person on election day? Or once you've requested a mail-in ballot, do you have to vote that way?
That's a great question. Yeah. I know this was a lot of information, so yes, feel free to ask questions for clarification or anything like that. So if you do apply to vote by mail, but you decide, for whatever the reason may be that you want to vote in person instead, what you will have to do is vote by provisional ballot. So what that means is, the poll workers will help you out with this, but you will cast your ballot, but it will be put aside. And the state will just make sure that you didn't also vote by mail, right? You can only vote once. So if you are signed up to vote by mail, the folks at the poll will see that. They'll have you vote by provisional ballot. And then once they can confirm, okay, you did not also vote by mail, this is your one and only ballot that you cast, then they will count that ballot. I hope that makes sense.
Great, thank you. And could you remind people again, how do you check your voter registration status and see if you are signed up to automatically receive vote by mail? Because I checked my status to test it while you were speaking, and I don't see anything in there that notifies whether or not I've signed up for vote by mail.
Okay, yeah, it should tell you, if you are signed up to vote by mail in that voter registration search tool. But, if not, you should be receiving information from your county as well. So
Okay.
so definitely check that out. But we can follow up. I can
Yeah,
always
so
check on that.
is it maybe it only, does it not say like yes or no? Is it maybe just that if you are voting, you are registered to vote by mail, that just appears in there, but there's nothing appears if you're not registered?
Yeah, I believe that's the case. I
Okay.
believe that if you are signed up to vote by mail, it should say so. But again, you should be receiving information at your address from your county as well.
Great. Thank you. And then other questions. What do you do if you make a mistake, damage, or lose a vote by mail ballot that you've received?
Yeah, good question. So this goes along with, anything super specific, anything individual like that. Contact your county. So your county elections office. Give them a call, tell them what happened. And if there's enough time, they may send you a new one. If not, you'll probably have to, again, vote by provisional ballot. So with anything, oh man, I dropped my mail ballot out the window and the dog grabbed it, anything like that, you will have to reach out to your county elections officials and they'll be able to help you on an individual basis.
Okay, thank you. Also, is there a difference, and if so, what is the difference in New Jersey now between absentee voting and a vote by mail ballot?
Yeah, great question. So in New Jersey, you do not need to have a reason to vote by mail. So in many states, they have absentee ballot or absentee voting because that's the only way that you can vote by mail is to say, hey, I'm not going to be at home during the election period. I need to vote by mail. I need to request an absentee ballot. In New Jersey, you don't need to have that as a reason in order to vote by mail. Anybody that wants to vote by mail can do so. You do just have to apply.
Great. I also have a question here specifically for military families. For residents who are in the military, is there an extension that they should be aware of if they're in another state for duty right now, other than where they're registered?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. You can find out everything that you need to know about voting if you're in the military. I just put the link in the chat. It's that same vote.nj.gov portal. So New Jersey Voter Information Portal, it has all of those options, including military and overseas voting. So definitely check that out and it will answer all your questions for you.
Great. Do you know offhand, is there an extension for military voting that's in effect, even if you don't know what the date is offhand?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest.
Okay.
I apologize.
That's okay. I think I've got some more questions that have come in. Let's see. Thank you. Yeah, Razia says she wants to encourage those on her military installation to make sure that they vote. So thank you so much for that, Razia. And then Elizabeth has a couple of really good questions about access to the vote for individuals who have been convicted of a crime but aren't currently incarcerated. And I know there have been some changes in New Jersey around that in the last couple of years. Are you able to share a little bit more about that accessibility for folks that have been formerly incarcerated?
Yeah, so if you are no longer incarcerated, you're on a parole or probation, you can register to vote. So yeah, definitely. Again, the New Jersey voter portal has information on all of this, but definitely just fill out a voter registration form and you should be able to cast your ballot.
Do you know if that information was ever communicated in any way by the state or by any private organizations to folks who were previously incarcerated and may not know that they now have the right to vote?
Yeah, I mean, I know that we have a handful of volunteers that are working with probation facilities and directly with, criminal justice groups to make sure that people are aware of this and to give them information. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's definitely a lack of information, a lack of communication, a lack of access. So continuing to bring this up to remind people, you can, check out opportunities to go to parole and probation facilities. and talk to folks that way. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely something that needs to be improved.
Yeah, I know I've seen a few people that have shared stories, personal stories online, that they didn't realize that they could vote in the last election until very recently, and they may have, found out last minute they actually had the right to vote. And yeah, I think it's really important that social workers help to spread that information and let any clients who may have been denied access to the vote at one point due to a criminal record that they are able to vote now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, on a bit of a technicality with relating to that, so the COVID pandemic has caused shifting in schedules and have caused a lot of court dates to be pushed back. Are people who are currently incarcerated but awaiting trial, do they have any access to the vote while they're delayed, or are they still barred from voting?
That is a great question. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. I think that if you're not convicted yet, but let me get back to you on that. I'll find out and send you an email.
Thank you. Also, here's a more general question. Is there a reason that people should explore early voting? Is there a benefit to voting early rather than on day of election, or is it real morally just a convenience thing?
Yeah, good question. That is really a convenience thing. It'll be the same process as voting, in person on election day. Again, the idea is just if only having a 1 day time period in order to go to the polls and be able to cast your ballot is not as helpful as having a whole extra week where you can figure out, do I want to vote on a weekend? Do I want to vote after work? What is the day that I have off, right? So it's really is a great opportunity to increase access to the ballot.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is thinking of that just sparked another question in my head. Are employers required to give employees time off, particularly hourly wage-based employees? Are they required to give them time off to vote if that's needed?
I'm not sure if it's required. I don't believe it is, but I'm not positive either on that. But again, having the extra addition of early voting, that's a whole bunch of extra days that hopefully should be helpful for that.
Thank you. Delia has a question about volunteering to be a poll worker. Do you have to be a poll worker in your town, or can you be a poll worker anywhere in your county or elsewhere in the state?
Yeah, good question. So a lot of the poll worker, it does vary by county. So it's, the information that I provided is kind of broad. I know, for example, some counties, they will limit the amount of hours that somebody that's 16 or 17 can work. And so the same goes for that. For the most part, I believe that you can anywhere in your county, you have to be a resident of your county, but some counties are more specific and they do want you to be a resident of the town.
Great, thanks, Melissa. If there are other questions that people on the call have, we have a small enough group, I think, that if you just want to put your hand up or unmute to ask Melissa a question directly, we can do that. I do have a couple of other questions while we're waiting to see if anybody in the audience has questions. I did have some other things that had occurred to me while you were speaking. One thing that I was wondering, I think you mentioned this, but I just want to make sure that we talked about it. Where again do people find the information for location of drop boxes in their county?
Yeah, good question. So I can put all of these links in the chat in a second, but everything that I mentioned, you can find it at either vote411.org, our website, which is NASW-NJ.org/vote, or the state's website, which is vote.nj.gov. And from there, it's clear. It'll say vote by mail. It'll either be in the vote by mail section, or it'll be its own separate Dropbox location section. And some of that is still being updated by the county. Actually, that's more for early voting polling locations are still a little bit being updated as all of the counties, finalize and put it up on the website. So the same might be said for drop box locations as well. So I definitely just recommend, as you get closer to actually bringing your ballot to a drop box location, you just look it up again to see if there are any additional locations.
Thanks, Melissa. Also, I know that we have a number of students on the call. Can we talk a little bit about students registering to vote and whether or not, if they're registered to vote maybe in their home state but are going to school in New Jersey, can they vote in New Jersey, and what's the process for that?
Yeah, good question. So again, that voter registration date is the most important thing for that, October 26th. So if you haven't yet registered, make sure you do it by then. If you are registered in, New York, but you're going to school in New Jersey and you would like to vote in New Jersey, you can do so, but you need to, again, update your information, have a change of address, and you have to be a resident of that area for at least 30 days. So if you just got to school 5 days ago, that might not work. But if you've been going to school in New Jersey for a couple of years now, you're a resident of the state, you can register to vote, but you'll have to update your information by October 26th.
Okay, but so for those students who maybe are on campus now from out of state or even elsewhere in state, if they've been on campus for 30 days in New Jersey, they're able to register to vote in New Jersey?
Yeah, if you're living there, if you're residing in that location.
Okay. Otherwise, can they do absentee ballots from their home municipality while they're at school if they're in another town? Or not absentee, I guess, sorry.
Vote by mail.
Vote by mail, right?
Right, yeah. Vote by mail is a great option for sure for folks that are at school. But again, you'll have to update your information by October 26th.
Great. Let's see. You talked a little bit about bearers, and I know that can be really confusing for people as far as how many ballots you're able to bring to the polls to drop off. And so I did want to mention, I think you had said it was 3 for non-household members and 5 for household members.
Yeah, that's correct.
What about helping other people, helping clients or other folks get registered to vote? Is there anything that people on the webinar may need to know about helping others get registered?
To be honest, I'm not super sure about that. But yeah, I mean, that vote.nj.gov, there's a voting rights and accessibility section. So hopefully that has more information on it, and I can pull that up and put it in the chat for you right now as well.
Thank you. Also, just thinking about special populations and folks who may need special access to the vote. Do you have information, or is information available for individuals maybe that have physical or intellectual disabilities and how they are able to access the vote, or if they need accommodations at the polls?
Yeah, so there's a law from 2002, which requires all facilities to be able to support people with disabilities. And so this same website, or the same link that I sent you, first of all, it has more information on voting rights and restoration for people on parole and probation, so you can read more about it there. But yeah, there's a lot of resources here, including forms and reports that you can fill out if you do see anything that's needs to be fixed, needs to be checked. You can fill out a polling place accessibility report. So yeah, definitely check out that website. You can read more about it, and you can find those resources there. And
I'm sorry, was that the vote.nj.gov website?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the voter rights and accessibility information. I put the link directly to that in the chat.
Yeah, I know in past years, we actually have worked with some organizations to do pre-assessment of polling locations to make sure they're accessible. And in past, we've also had people take accessibility forms with them to the polls day of to make sure that everything was accessible and to report that if there were issues. So I'm glad to hear that that information is still available online for folks that are taking advantage of voting in person, whether it be early voting or day of. Are there any other questions that people have for Melissa? Feel free to just unmute. Okay, it seems like we may have exhausted the questions. I think we went through most of the questions that I had. I'm just checking my list one last time here to see what else I had been thinking. We talked about access for people who had been formerly incarcerated. I think we covered most of it. Apply to receive vote by mail ballots. Yeah. So I guess we can wrap up a few minutes early. Is there anything else that you want to leave attendees with before we wrap up?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I've been at the league since March, so it's been an awesome learning experience for me. I love participating and being able to get this information out there. The main thing is really just make a plan and make a plan ahead of time. Please don't wait until October 31st. You don't want to make your plan on Halloween. So make your plan, look at all your options, pick which ones, get the application in, and don't just say, okay, I'm going to vote during early voting. Which day are you going to vote? Which location you're going to vote at? And get friends and family to go along with you. Again, this is often a low turnout election, but it's just as important as any other election. So it's not just you, but it's your friends and your family that you want to encourage and you want to pass the information along to as well. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point too about mentioning how this is a low turnout election usually. I'm assuming that it'll be a little heavier than some years because the governor is on the ballot this year. So people tend to pay a little more attention, I think, when the governor is on the ballot. But yeah, we really need to be encouraging folks to vote and to get out and make their voice heard because, these are frequently underattended elections. And so I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I'm glad that you mentioned make a plan to vote too, because that was, kind of a big slogan and rallying cry during the federal election last year. I haven't heard too many people talking about making a plan to vote. So that is still good messaging to use with people and good ways to make sure that people have the plan, whether it's to request a mail-in ballot or to plan to vote early on a particular day or plan to vote in person on election day, that you should chart everything out and know what your deadlines are and know when you need to take action to vote. So thank you for bringing that up. Before we wrap, I think, maybe we can just tease a couple of other programs that we will be having coming up down the road with the League of Women Voters of New Jersey and NASW New Jersey. There's a couple of other different things that you all are working on that we're a part of. One of them is the same-day voter legislation that's been introduced in the legislature in New Jersey. And without trying to super confuse people after this whole call, there is legislation pending that would shorten the length of time that you have between the deadline to register and the actual day of voting. And also the legislation would allow for voting the same day that you register in some instances. So NASW and the League of Women Voters and some other partners will be working to advance that legislation, and we hopefully will be bringing you some community conversations on that topic. And also we are working together with regards to redistricting to make sure that redistricting is fair and that we have an opportunity to get fair and well-represented maps drawn when we enter our redistricting period. So you will be hearing more about that and hopefully another community conversation on that topic as well. So we love working with you guys. The League is a fantastic partner and you do fantastic work. And you've come up to speed very quickly, it sounds like, just being there since March. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, your organization is awesome as well. I know Jessie has been here to talk with you all a bunch, so she's teaching me. So yeah, I appreciate it.
She's great to learn from, Jessie, the executive director at the League. So all right, I think we'll wrap like 5 minutes early, but thank you so much, Melissa, for being here. And despite the tech glitch, things worked out great. And, we look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.